Okay, well, I had a lot of requests for a Quadrajet rebuild video. So, I didn't have one for a while that I needed to rebuild. Now I do, so let's do it. This is a Quadrajet I just picked up from the junkyard recently, yesterday, as a matter of fact. And it's going to go on this Dodge I have. And this is kind of a rare Quadrajet. It doesn't mean anything special, but it's rare because this is a 3-year only model that goes on a Dodge 360, and so I was glad to find that. So anyway, let's give you just a brief overview on this carburetor. If any of you that watch my videos have seen a lot of information on Quadrajets. And three main parts to a Quadrajet. You have your air horn, it's bolted on here. You have your main body down here, then you have a base plate. Down here has a butterflies in it. And so that's that. That's the three parts of the carburetors. We'll just take them all apart. And I always, when I start rebuilding one of these, I start working from the top down. Just a good way to do it. Keeps you organized. Just keep track of all your bolts and screws and clips and things like that as you go through. Don't get in a hurry. Don't try not to misplace anything. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit, and then I'm going to take off this. There we go. Take off this hold down stud for the air cleaner. You can see that spins on there. That's separate. It's two different actual pieces. Just lay that to the side there, and then you can take that off, and then I like to go around and take off any kind of things that bolt on the outside of it, such as this vacuum brake, and this is just an idle stop solenoid here. So we'll go ahead and do that. These are usually, this is a 85 or 86 model carburetor, and they're usually always Torx bolts by that time. So I just have a little set of fittings, drivers, and I just use that, and they just come right out. And normally, I don't really ever throw stuff like this in the parts wash or anything like that, because it's an electrical device and you could damage it. So we do that. Just put that to the side. And what I'll do is I'll take that off, and I'll actually put the bolts in here to keep them organized so I know where they're at. And then I'll turn it around and we'll remove this vacuum brake, is what it's called back here. Now, I got looking at this, and something doesn't look right about this carburetor on this. See how the secondary, the air flap's only open partially? Well, it's because it's running into a bracket here. I think something is, either got the wrong vacuum brake on it, or, well, that has to be it. I think it's got the wrong vacuum brake on it, which I'm going to buy a new one anyway, because there's a piece of linkage in here that goes up to the unloads a choke with this right here, and this piece of linkage looks twisted. It looks too twisted, like it wouldn't fit back the way it should. So I'm suspecting that it's probably got the wrong rear vacuum brake on it. A lot of times they're bad anyway. You can test them. I'll show you how to test them, see if they're bad or good. And you got to kind of fish your way into this one, this bottom one here. Now, not every Quadrajet will have a vacuum brake back here. There may only be one at the front, which bolts on right here. There may be two, and there may just be one at the back. And then some of the oldest Quadrajets that have a divorced choke, which means it doesn't have this, it has it down on the intake. They may not even have a vacuum brake. Yeah, something looks suspect about this. Usually, once you unbolt it, you can just work it. There's one loose. Work it off the linkage. that. Now, see, this is just it's got a rubber diaphragm in it. It's got a port here for the hose. Now see, I'm holding my finger on this and see how there's no resistance. I can suck air. I can suck air through it and it's not pulling it in. So it's busted. It's no good. So that choke unloader, you can call it anything you want to. They call it a vacuum brake, but you can call it an unloader or whatever you want to call it. But it's the same deal. And on this one, it's bad. It's no good. So we'll just put that to the side. And if you have that issue with one being bad, just go to the parts store and order one. They're readily available. Order to pick it up if they haven't had it in stock. Hopefully they will. So that's on the list. And then we got a piece of linkage here that goes up to this secondary air door. See, they open all the way on their own. So yeah. So if you have any problems remembering how this stuff goes, you may want to take a digital camera and take pictures of it before you start, so you can kind of remember how to put things back on. We only got 2 of these pieces of linkage, so we shouldn't have any problem with that. I can usually remember. But if you have one of these and it's good, you know this one's kind of grungy, but if yours is good, don't throw it in the cleaning solution, because it will ruin that diaphragm in there. So just clean this by hand somehow, if it's good. If it's bad, just buy new one. And of course the new ones are clean anyway. So alright. Now you don't usually have to take anything off of this throttle linkage over here. All this just stays on the base plate. It's all one assembly. So some people do take this apart back here, but I don't recommend it, because it's just more work than is needed. So, all right. Now, like I said, you don't have to do this in a specific order. You don't have to do exactly the same order as I do it, but I just have a general way I do this. Now, the next thing you want to take loose is you'll have to take off this. This carburetor had gas in it. It's been running recently. You'll want to take off this throttle arm. This is the when you crack the throttle open, it pushes down on the accelerator pump right here. It's got a pivot. It's got a little pin in it. So you'll need to take a real small punch right here and knock this thing in just about as far as you can get it. And when you get it far enough, this thing will come up, and like that. And you just take it off the little rod there that comes up from the throttle linkage. Set to the side. Now keep in mind there's 2 holes on most of these, and this one was on the outside, so try to remember that where it goes. And like I said, if you need to take a picture, by all means do so. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and take off this filter housing. Now on this one says filter on it, but this Dodge doesn't have a filter in there. It should just be open with nothing in here, because Dodge products always use an external filter down by the fuel pump. So, Tyler. Now this is a sore spot with a lot of people. They tend to bugger these things up and have leaks with them and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to reiterate something here about these. You need to remember. Now, if this had a filter in it, it would probably have one that's a little bit longer than this, but that's not really relevant. You just go on what you have with it. I think there's any gas in this, just in case there is. Well, it does have a filter in it. Okay. Well, you learn something every day, but this one shouldn't have 2 filters in it. Okay, well, I guess somebody was trying to do a good thing here and run 2 filters. Now, like I said, Dodge uses an external filter, so I'm not going to put a filter back in this with this spring, but this is what you'll face if you take a GM Quadrajet, which meaning it came on a Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, Buick, Pontiac, whatever, they always use a filter in here. So that's unusual. But this is how the filter goes. It goes with the gasket facing the outside, the input side of it, spring inside here like this. That's how it goes. So now what I want to show you about this is critical. Take a look at this right here. You see that there's a little small nylon gasket on the end of this. That's your gasket to seal this thing. Now a lot of people don't know about that, and they forget it, and they try to put this thing on and tighten it down, and it still leaks gas out, and they tighten it more, it still leaks gas out, they tighten it, finally they strip the threads out, and then it's almost unusable. You have to end up like JB welding the thing back in without a filter in there and have to go to an external filter. So be sure that you remember to put this thing back on. Now you'll get a new one in the kit, you should. They always do have it, so be sure you put that back on there and don't tighten the crap out of this and don't cross thread. Just be real careful with it. So that's interesting that this had a fuel filter in it. But okay. Woo, gas fumes. Alright, yeah, and try to do this in a pretty well ventilated area where there's no sparks, and I think it goes without saying, don't smoke while you're doing this. Alright, next thing up. There's a small little piece of linkage that comes up from the choke arm here. This comes from your choke and connects it to the choke butterfly. It's just got a flat blade screw on it. Just unscrew this. Pull it off, and then what I do is I put this screw back in and run it down. Put this over to the side somewhere. Okay, now we've got everything here that's going to prevent this air horn from coming off. We've got this connected, removed, whatever. So we're ready to start taking the bolts out of this thing. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here, 2 in the center, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then there's 2, don't forget them, down in here, that are down in the throat of the carburetor. And boy, this carburetor sure is gunky. This is the original, I'm pretty sure this is original off the engine I pulled it off of. It's got a sticker at the back here that's a Delco sticker. Usually it has a barcode on it right here, but that looks original, so it's probably never ever been rebuilt. And that's good, because rebuilt carburetors that you get from the parts stores, a lot of times they'll work okay, but they just they're just mass produced, and the calibration on them may be out a little bit. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're working with a carburetor like this, when you put this thing back together, I'm going to remind you again when we're actually doing it, but you're not trying to hold a dam together with these bolts, so there's no need to tighten them down as tight as you can get them, because this is not the strongest metal. This is just kind of an alloy pot metal, and it will bend, will warp. So these carburetors will run with the air horn just laying on it. So you don't have to tighten the PP out of it. Now, so far all these bolts are the same length, so you don't have to be panicking trying to remember where these bolts all go. But there are the 2 at the very rear are longer, and the 2 in the center are they look totally different. So it's not going to be easy to confuse those. Now, some of you may be a little bit more picky about it, and you may want to keep these labeled and separated. That's fine. It's a good idea. And what I'm doing will also apply to a dual jet. Those of you who don't know, a dual jet is a Rochester carburetor that's basically, it's a 2-barrel, and it's basically just the front half of a Quadrajet. Works exactly the same. You just don't have any secondaries. Alright. Don't lose this little shield and thing here. I'm not ever sure what this, I've heard people refer to this and tell you what this does. It's kind of a, I think it's to kind of keep gas from getting over in the primaries when you're really hard on the throttle or sucking it out of the float well. We'll just take that off and that'll go in your solution. Alright, 2 rear ones. Now these are just unscrewed just nicely, so that's good. See, these are a lot longer. There's only 2 of them. They're that long. I'm glad this thing's got fresh gas in it. It's kind of fuming me out in here, but oh, I forgot one almost. Why didn't you guys remind me? But anyway, it's better than having old stale funky gas in it. Alright, there's those, and then you got, they're right down in the throat of the carburetor here. And I'll show you this when I get this one out here. Now, you see what size this is? See, it's tiny compared to these, so you really can't get these confused. I mean, I guess some people could somehow, but I never have. And again, like I said, when you put these back together, the rule needs to be snug, not over tight. These can be kind of a chore to get out sometimes. Sometimes you might have to use a pair of needle nose or something to pull it out. And it comes right out. I think this carburetor is going to clean up pretty nice. These bolts have just got a bunch of goop on them, like it's been running without an air cleaner.